G'day, mate. What's your name?
David Boyle. Is that how we start?
That's how we start,
Nice,
man.
excellent.
You just said you just watched an episode.
I did. yeah, I forgot about your intro. So that's on. You just walked over here and all right.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Now, and what do you do, David Boyle?
I am a comedian, podcaster, crane operator.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of Crowdworkcast. My name's Andrew Barnett. Thanks so much for joining me. Now, before I tell you about today's episode, I do need to take advantage of the fact this is my last chance to plug my show at the Sydney Comedy Store. If you're listening to this in the first couple of days since it's come out, then there still is time to get along to the Sydney Comedy Store this Friday, the 3rd of November, 7 p.m. Come see my show, How Good. Now, this is a bit of a special one for me because when I first started going along, just watching comedy, the Comedy Store, when I first went there to watch comedy, I set myself a little goal that one day I wanted to do a solo show at the Sydney Comedy Store. And that, after all these years, is happening this Friday. And I'm very excited to be doing it. I'd love to get a real good number of people along there. I'm proud of the show. It's a good show. It's gone well in Brisbane. It's gone well in Newcastle. Yeah, I think it's a really good show, and it'll probably be the last time I do this particular show. So I would love to get as many people along to the Sydney Comedy Store this Friday as possible. It's going to be a fun night. So, yeah, please do get along. You can get tickets at the Comedy Store website or through my website, andrewbarnettcomedy.com, or A-list, alist.com.au. You can, come along, please. Now, I know there are some newer comics who occasionally listen to this podcast. If you are a newer comic and the ticket seems a bit pricey or whatever, but you'd like to come along, just DM me and I'll see if I can get you on the door and we'll sort that out. But yeah, please, if you do want to come along, let me know, and I can sort that out. That's no dramas at all. Now, to today's episode, David Boyle. I first met David in Sydney when we were both sort of newish comics, and he was a drinker at the time. He's no longer a drinker. To that end, he's got a great podcast called I'm Quitting Alcohol, which comes out every single day. He hasn't missed a day since he quit alcohol. He does. It's 5 to 10 minutes, just him talking about whatever's going on in his life. It's a really interesting podcast. There's a lot of, at this point, there's a lot of back episodes. So if you haven't checked it out, check it out. Particularly if I'm not saying if you're someone who thinks maybe considering giving up alcohol or you got other issues or whatever. It's a very helpful podcast. He just describes, what he's been through. It's his personal journey, I suppose, if you want to use that word. But really funny podcast. He's a funny guy. So you're going to enjoy that. To that end, this episode here was a lot of fun to record. He's had a fascinating life. We talk about his marriage. He got married in India. His wife is Indian. So like I said, it's a fascinating episode. He's a really interesting guy. So check him out. He is at Boyle Comedy on Instagram. So check out that, give him a follow. Go see him live wherever you get the chance. I believe he's going to be in Vancouver and Toronto soon, and is going to be traveling a bit through the States. So check him out if you're over there. Have a look, and you can always find him around Sydney. I believe he'll be in Melbourne earlier in the year. But yeah, Boyle Comedy for all the information there. All right, that's probably it for now. Just enjoy this episode. This is my chat with David Boyle. Crane operator.
Yeah, philosopher.
Really? Philosopher, comedian, and podcaster I knew about.
Yeah.
Crane operating I didn't.
Yeah, well, I've been out of it for a couple of years now, but I was doing that for quite some time.
Really?
Yeah.
Union jobs?
No, down in Melbourne, just the dodgiest jobs you can think. It was like a full backyard job style type company.
So you're not flying the Eureka flag off your
No,
crane?
no, we were like run out of the union sites if they saw us. We were doing all like the illegal jobs. We were doing the dodgiest jobs, like lifting over power lines and shit.
Oh, far out. How'd you get into crane operating?
Well, how did I? What happened was I had a kid and we went to India. My wife's from India. So we lived in India for a year and I came back.
So it was you had a reason to go. It wasn't just some eat, pray, love shit.
No. I wasn't finding myself. So got back from India, had nothing. Before I went to India, I was just doing a bit of barista sort of work.
Yep.
And comedy in that. And I couldn't go back to the barista work. So one of my mates was working for a steel company and they had a dodgy steel company, and they had a sister sort of company who were running the cranes. So
that's what you want to hear, a dodgy steel company. And we need a dodgy crane company to lift this
They were
steel.
all interconnected and they were all dodgy. My boss, he actually died last year.
Oh.
And yeah, he was young. He was like maybe 48 or 50 or something like that.
Hell.
Big pig hunter guy. There was 2 bikies. It was a real fucking dodgy operation.
Wow. So yeah, okay. That's and so comedy is the more stable of the safer. That's
comedy. Yeah, ended up being the safest one.
It's not often you do comedy and have another job and there's more weirdos at the other job.
Oh man, this was like it was something else. It was good. It was a good learning experience because these guys are hard dudes.
Yeah.
Crane operators. They're like 30 darts before 6 a.m.
So crane operator, are you upper like do you?
No,
you
I wasn't in the towers. I was in the mobile cranes.
Oh, nice.
So doing like the 13 and 22 tonners, going from job to job, bouncing,
lifting pools over roofs, sort of stuff.
That's right. My first lift was like the most illegal lift I did. we were dropping a caravan over a house right out the back, and there was about that much gap to get it over the roof, and the wheels of the crane, the outriggers are up off the ground, the bikies yelling at me, fucking hold on to it. Like it was if a gust of wind had come, we would have all been fucked.
That is so, and lifting of all things a caravan, something that has wheels.
Yeah, I know, but it was like a trapped backyard.
So they wanted what?
So there was no back access, and there was like houses surrounding it.
These people wanted a caravan, but just don't want to take it anywhere.
Yeah, no, it was like they were doing an extension. They just put the caravan out the back.
I got to say, like at a certain point, because cranes, I don't think are cheap to hire. Like that sort of thing's not cheap to hire.
No.
How bad do you want, like?
Yeah,
dodgy
I don't know.
accommodation at your house. Well, cheaper just to buy a granny flat.
They're probably trying to get the mum out.
Yeah,
you're in the caravan now. We're sick of you.
I didn't expect. I got to be honest.
Yeah, no, I did that 6-7 years, something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was doing it for ages.
So
it was dogging first. So like you're the dude outside the crane directing the crane.
Dogman?
Dogman.
Dogman.
Yeah,
so my kids read those books.
Oh yeah. My son's reading it at the moment too. Yeah, the Dogman.
Because dogging means something else.
Yeah.
So you're just telling the missus, I got to go dogging.
Yeah, what's your husband? He's a dogger.
He's a
dogman.
Well, he dogs for money.
He dogs. You had dogging? Yeah. Yeah, so he's the guy who is with the crane operator. He's the one doing all the fucking work. The crane, it looks fancy being in the crane. It looks like you're doing a lot, but you're doing fuck all. You're just pulling a couple of levers. But the dude outside, the dogman, is the guy doing all the fucking work.
So they're like, it's like when to give you an equivalent, I remember when I was a kid, we were in at Albury for the movies.
Yeah.
And they had the claw.
Okay, yeah.
So my mate would line up at the side and tell me when I was lined up in that angle, and then I'd line up the front, and then we got like 6 soccer balls in a row.
That's all you need. Just send that in. A video of that, you'll get a job. That's what it is.
So that was it. You were in Melbourne doing that. So,
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back. You and I met in Sydney.
Yeah.
Is that where you started comedy?
We started pretty much, I think you started like 2 or 3 months ahead of me.
Yeah, I got to say, you and I think, started, like, in my memory, I met you pretty early on, and
Yeah.
we were both new.
Yeah, but the difference was you were so much better, so much quicker. It was like, when I found out, because you must have started, it was only months between us. When I found out you only started a few months before me, because it was just me and Andrew Paskin at the back just being like bitter, just horrible, mean, evil cunts out the back. When I found out you'd started only 3 months earlier, I was blown away. I'm like, you're like 3 years ahead, 4 years ahead.
No. Well, no. Look at us now.
Yeah.
It all evens out. That's because I remember you, because this is pre you giving up the grog, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so you and Andrew Paskin, who hadn't given up the grog at that stage.
No.
I remember I was only telling someone recently, getting cornered by you two, I think Wolfie, at maybe Comedy Lounge. Like the three, and I just was like, I'd had maybe a beer because I was running the door, but you blokes had been drinking.
Yeah.
And so then I just had the three of you sweaty drunks.
That's a dodgy combo.
Yeah. I think it looked like it was going to be a fun night, but I had to go home.
Yeah, so that was, I don't know, 2009, I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, that was way ages ago. So you started back then. It's obviously similar time to me.
Yeah.
And then you moved to Melbourne.
Yeah.
So what precipitated that?
My future wife, she ended up getting a job down in Melbourne. And I was like, I'm from Melbourne originally. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, yeah, I was born in Sydney, but I grew up like from the age of 3 in Melbourne, Victoria and that. And so I was happy to go back down. And so I did 3 years comedy here and then the rest of it down in Melbourne.
Yeah. And then when did India happen?
India happened when I had my first son. So we did a year in India, 2016 to 2017, and that was a wild time. And I was doing gigs the whole time as well. I never stopped gigging. I was gigging in India.
Wow.
For a full year.
What's the scene like in India?
Well, the scene in India was unbelievable. You think we have a hard time in Australia. In India, it's fucked. Like, it's impossible to make money there just gigging around. Like, and it's impossible to get any traction there just gigging around. So when I first went there, though, the scene was like massive. It was huge. There was a couple of comedy clubs in Bangalore where I was staying, and everything was going great. The scene when I got there was only like 7 or 8 years old. So,
oh, wow.
So their pro comedians, their biggest comedians were like the same year I started. But what happened was they all got names. They all became big and they could sell out their own shows. So they toured around India just selling out theatres and all that sort of stuff. So they weren't doing the small clubs anymore. And then that second tier coming through weren't ready to hold up a scene. And I think everything sort of like collapsed. And then a few years later, when I went back to live there for another year, it was just a fucking mess. It was just like the worst open mics you've ever seen. It was fucked.
So you Bangalore both times? Is that where the wife's family are, or is that why you were there?
That's just like go there while the kid's like a baby and get all the Indian family to look after the kid because they love it. They love it. So they just whisk.
How did they accept? Like, because you're a pretty white dude.
I'm very. They didn't do their research. That's how. That's how they accepted me.
So obviously English is spoken there, but there's multiple languages. Are they are they speaking to you in English, or did you have to learn some Hindi, or what?
No, they don't speak Hindi. So it's South India. Bangalore's South India. So the state language is Kannada.
Right.
Which is completely different to Hindi. All these languages are completely different. So the state language is Kannada, but in the house they speak another language, which is Telugu, which is from Andhra Pradesh, which is the next state over. So I can speak a tiny little bit of Kannada.
Yeah.
But that does nothing in the house because everyone's speaking Telugu, and I just get left out of it. Her parents don't really speak that much English, and if they do, they don't understand my accent at all. And then when I try and like slow it down, and I sound even more bogan. I'm like, yeah.
I noticed that too. Like, because I've had to, like, just doing shows where you know there's people that are struggling.
Yeah.
Like that lazy bones comedy that you guys run.
Yeah.
That first night when I tried to talk to a guy and I started the conversation, realized, this guy doesn't speak English well.
Yeah.
He is not getting anything of what I'm saying. And then, when you slow down, every little part of your accent that you rush.
Yeah, you're like,
how you going?
Yeah. But that's what every gig in India was like that. I would spend the first minute or more than a minute, first 2-3 minutes, getting them to adjust to my accent and just English, because the comic before me would be like fucking going a million miles a minute in Hindi.
Oh, Jesus.
and they're just laughing. They're laughing on like cadence with Hindi as well. It's a funny language. So like guys are destroying, and then they're like, this white Australian guy comes up and I'm like, all right, do you understand what I'm saying? That's how I'm like, do you understand?
That's amazing. So you obviously passion for it at that stage, but so how did you and your missus meet? Like
just drunk at a pub at Madison near Central.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there is like a little bit of a story to it. So I met her at the pub and she was gorgeous. Like, it's going to sound fucking lame, but she had this like glow around, like she was so beautiful. I was like, I just need to go up and speak to this girl. And I said, you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my entire life. And she's like, I'm Indian. I need to be married like next year. And I'm like, I'll marry you right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm like, I'll marry you right this second.
This is a rom-com.
And then what happened was we were leaving. Nothing happened. We were just chit-chatting. And we were leaving, but I used to have this shitty old Nokia.
Yep.
And I refused to throw it away, so I had no buttons and I had a cracked screen, and I was answering.
And she went, this guy seems like a winner.
I was answering it with a fucking toothpick. This is this phone. So I was like, I cannot pull this out in front of her. That's the end of it. So I was like, I'll give you my number. So I gave her my number, and I didn't hear from her for ages. And then I went overseas.
You gave her the number and then thought, I need to buy a pack of toothpicks because I don't want to miss a phone call.
And then I went overseas, spent like 3 months overseas. And then the day after I get back from overseas, I get a message saying, is this David? So it took her almost 4 months to message me.
Dude.
And it just so happened the day after I got back. And for some reason, I knew who it was. I'm like, is this the Indian girl? And she's like, yeah. And then the rest is history.
Wow. She's obviously read the game. And she negged you hard.
She played me. Yeah.
She played you. That's amazing.
But then they weren't into me.
They weren't into you? No.
Nah. Because she's like well brought up and all that sort of stuff. She's got 2 masters, engineer. Her sister's a doctor. Her dad's like...
Oh, so it's that sort of Indian family, the focus on education, work hard, make something of yourself.
That sort of thing, yeah. Just like a high-achieving family. Like her dad is a lawyer, but also like a humanitarian, like civil rights lawyer. he fought in India. he fought in India he got the eunuchs, who are like the how would you say it? The trannies? I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, the trans people.
But they're the ones, they never had working rights.
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, so what they do is, how they earn money is at the traffic lights and the stops, they take blessings for you and give you a coin and do all that sort of stuff. But they're basically begging, and they could never work. And then he fought all the way to like the Supreme Court to get them working rights, and ended up getting it. So he's the lawyer for that, and a bunch of other stuff, working with like the lower castes and all that sort of stuff.
So, I just love a guy
Like
who's
the
willing to accept the most marginalised people in India, but sees you and just goes, nah, no good.
That's trouble.
Yeah.
It was actually
Even I have a line.
he was actually the one that made it possible, because he's like he's not really religious. He's more atheist, but more open to everything.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if he's taken that upon himself,
Yeah.
in such a very traditional sort of a society.
Yeah. He was a journalist for like this rebel magazine back in the day in India, fighting for like caste and all that sort of stuff. So he's like he's a good dude. He's a real good dude.
Wow.
It was the mum who was not that keen on me. She's like straight down. She's traditional.
Okay.
She's super traditional.
So did you have the traditional wedding and everything?
Yeah. I had a wedding, 3,000 people. It was crazy. It was crazy.
How many your side? How many her side?
We got like 30 my side. Sorry. We got
30
alcohol.
1%'s not bad.
We got 30. It might have been a little bit more, 40 or something like that. All my mates, all my dodgy mates throughout my whole life, every period, every epoch, ended up there, and we all stayed in a hotel, this one hotel together, and it was just chaos. But it was like the craziest 2 weeks of my life, and the wedding goes for a full week as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's not just one day. It's like one day's the like ceremony, one day's like a turmeric ceremony where you get covered in turmeric. The next one's like, what was it? It was like a reception, and then there's like the actual engagement, and there's just shitloads of things. It was all a blur.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you think though, like growing up as just a bogan Aussie kid from
in Dramana,
was there part of you that looked during the wedding just going, This I never would have predicted for myself.
Yeah. There was that. But the first time I ever went to India, I went with her, and this is before we even told. Oh fuck! This is before we even told her parents. I hope this doesn't it'll never get to them. You're not translating this into.
Mate, this is getting translated into all languages. No,
Yes.
No, this is.
So she picked me up at the station in Bangalore, and then for some crazy reason, she's like, "Come to my house. I want to show you my." I'm like, "That's insane! Like, your parents don't know anything about us. Like, I'm not just walking into." And I refused to. And she's like, "Well, I got to go home for a little while," and she dropped me down the road on the side of the railway tracks, and I just stood there. I sparked a cigarette. And I just stood there looking around, and there's like Indian dudes, there's cows walking past. It's like full middle of India, just going, well, I never expected this.
Yeah. I might have done my nuts here.
Yeah. It's been very surreal. That whole thing.
That's amazing. I love those sort of stories too, because I think, like, as much as we think we're cultured and whatever, like.
No, it's not. It's nothing. No, there's no. Do we think we're cultured?
No, I think some. Well, you watch some people on stage. I think we think we're cultured.
Oh,
but
no.
Yeah,
No, we're lowest rung.
Mate, India fascinates me not only for just how different it seems, but also just how many different cultures within India.
Yeah.
And languages and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. It really is like going through Kerala from the very south, Kerala, then Bangalore, then in the middle, sort of Delhi, Mumbai, and then up into Himachal Pradesh, which is like the Himalayas and all that. It's you might as well be in different countries. It's like it's pretty crazy.
Now, I have to ask, just because I'm a mad cricket fan, is that what they, like when they know you're Australian, is that the first sort of thing people go to as a cultural connection?
Yeah. Ricky Ponting, Shane Warne, Adam Gilchrist, and now they're like Steve Smith and shit, and you're like, shut up, I'm older than Steve Smith. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, we're talking about the golden age, mate. Ricky Ponting.
The golden age.
I remember when we were we got fascinated when I was working at Fox and we had the cricket show. Got fascinated with there was this great movie that a lot of the Australian cricketers were in, where their dialogue would get dubbed by.
Okay, yeah.
So like they get them to do the dialogue, but then they get dubbed by someone doing a bad Australian accent.
Oh, so an Indian dude.
Yeah.
Doing.
Yeah, and then they didn't know what happened. Like I remember talking. David Warner was on the show, and we had this great ad.
Yeah.
Where he taste like when he was playing in the IPL, and there's like it's a food brand. I think it was Two Horses or something. Food.
Okay, yeah.
And he tries it and goes, that's delicious. But it's like, that's delicious. Like it's not his voice at all, and it's just so funny. And we found a great one of Ricky Ponting it's online. It's on YouTube, but it's great. Where he's talking about, as a cricketer, I'm used to pain. And he starts pointing out all his scars, Sharbakta, 100 miles an hour. And then he goes to point to one on his chin. He goes, my wife. And then his phone rings. He goes, oh, hello, baby. Like, it's the weirdest ad I've ever seen. It's like for Seagrams or something, but it was just like, it's fascinating because it must be a thing. And I remember Dave Warner said, oh yeah, we shot that. And then they said, oh, your microphone didn't work. Do you want to reshoot it or do you want to? But it's obviously not that. Obviously, there's something with...
Yeah, they're just stitching them up.
We don't... We're going to use a voiceover because we don't think that everyone will be able to understand your accent.
Yeah. That could be the thing too.
But it's one of those it's one of those places. There's some great Brett Lee stuff.
We're just going to make you say whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, exactly.
Modi forever. He's the Prime Minister.
That's It's an interesting situation over there at the moment with Modi. He's...
man, that's... You could go on for like months. Yeah, you just stay out of the politics.
Yeah. Well, have you seen the new stadium? The Modi Stadium they've built? Like, that to me, like, I'm all for a big stadium. But when they're naming it after the Prime Minister, I'm like...
Yeah, it's not just that. Modi's on the TV. He's like statues and shit like that. Really? It's like a cult of personality thing going on.
I don't know if I like that.
It's problematic. It's definitely problematic.
Well, that's why when I saw the stadium, they've called it Modi Stadium. I'm like, you have just a list of amazing cricketers you could have named this after.
Yeah. No, Modi's not interested in that. No, Modi owns the media and everything, so his picture's everywhere. It's crazy.
That's fascinating. Oh. Yeah. So the other thing we should probably talk about though, because I just got fascinated with your Indian adventures because I was watching because you were over there during COVID for a bit, weren't you?
Yeah.
I was watching your a few of your videos you were posting, just little adventures, out in India during lockdown. What was it like there?
So what happened was we left Australia. We got an exemption because we had a kid during lockdown.
Yep.
And
was this in Melbourne?
This is in Melbourne, yeah.
Oh, geez. So you escaped prison Melbourne.
So we did a full year, a bit over a year in Melbourne, and it was fucked, like completely cooking us. And there was barely any cases, and you couldn't leave the house, and we just had a fucking kid, and her parents were meant to come over. And all this stuff, and somehow we applied for like 3 or 4 times and got rejected to get the exemption to go to India because she still had her Indian passport. And then the last time we tried, we're just like, yeah, suicide. Yeah, like we're suicidal. We just had to get, they're like, exemption approved. Well, yeah, you had to pull something because my wife was pretty cooked at the time.
Yeah, so that's you decided to go to a developing country rather than Melbourne.
Yeah, Melbourne was
in the middle of a health crisis.
Melbourne was fucked at the time. It just felt like the walls were closing in, and because they were trying to keep it at 0.
Yeah.
And India was open at the time, completely open. They'd had the first wave, and they were open, and everything was sweet. And then we landed. This is no shit. We landed. 2 days later, we get as we land, we get a text message from the government saying your exemption's been revoked. Like, we got through and all that because the second wave was just hitting.
Oh, jeez.
And then we landed. 3 days later, we're in full lockdown in India, and it's like the apocalypse. Like, it's fucking going off there. And they just don't have the infrastructure and the facilities there. So people it felt like people were just dropping off every second day. My wife lost between like 15 and 20 people she either knew directly or one removed. So many people died. So many people died. Like cousins, people she went to uni with, all this sort of, like, everyone was dying. But after 6 weeks, everyone was over it and they just opened up. Like, they just let it rip and opened up. And then after 6 weeks, it was still full COVID, but after 6 weeks, everyone was just like, we've had enough, fuck it. And it was just fully open and everything was sweet. I'll give you an example where the day they reopened, they tried to, this is pure India. This is just exactly what India's like. Because they're uncontrollable.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of people.
It's chaos. There's a weird controlled chaos. So the day they reopened, they're like 50% capacity in all the restaurants and all that sort of stuff. So we went out first day to this restaurant around the corner, and we walk in and they've got the restaurant like barricaded just down the middle, 50-50. And they've got 100% of the people in 150 and the other 50 is empty. So that's what
so you're only allowed to fill half of it.
So they've just crammed in everyone, every customer into 150. And we're like, yeah,
that's so. Well, I mean, mathematically, it's not wrong.
Yeah, they're right technically. But we were like, yeah, the third wave is not going to be far off.
That was, oh man, that's that's fascinating because, yeah, obviously Melbourne did it tough, but then to go from where it feels unnecessary to somewhere where you go, oh, okay, this is...
Yeah, but India was way better than Melbourne because even though everyone was dying, everyone really locked down for about 6 weeks, even though people were out in the street and all that, it was just like everything was closed, but people were going out and shit. But you just felt like you were much more free there. In Melbourne, it was just a head fuck the whole entire time. And so I went to India, and I much preferred being in India. And then Melbourne got the second lockdown, and I think that just proper cooked everyone. I was speaking to everyone, and they just. And then when I came back from India and went to Melbourne for the comedy festival, everyone was cooked. Like, I could tell.
That comedy I remember I went down for that comedy festival, and I said to someone, it feels like the city felt like a rescue puppy.
Yeah.
Something bad's happened. They want to trust you, but they're really like...
It was a real weird, like... I don't know, a depression, psychosis, something was going on down there.
Oh man, that's insane. So then moved back to Sydney.
Yeah,
and
from India.
Happily ever after, obviously.
Yeah.
So
I never thought I'd move back to Sydney.
Oh really? Why not?
I was done with Sydney. I spent 10 or 12 years here, and I lived all around, and I'd done Sydney, and then I don't know. My wife didn't want to go back to Melbourne, so we were like, all right, I'll do Sydney again. And she has friends up here, so yeah, that was the main thing.
I mean, comedy's going well for you in Sydney now.
Yeah, Sydney's fine.
Gigging.
I actually like the gigs up in Sydney a little bit better than Melbourne.
Yeah.
And it's easier to gig around. It's better. The weather's nicer. It's not as depressing during the winter. Like, I was still shorts and a t-shirt all winter. It was amazing.
Thing I find the difference to, like, Sydney will get cold at different points, but the Melbourne and certainly like that Victoria, I remember where I grew up, every year I'll look at about September, I'll look at the news, the weather on the news, and just notice that already we're getting like 25, 26 degrees in Sydney, and you look and it's, high of 13.
Yeah,
like winter just goes that bit longer.
Yeah, it goes like 2 or 3 months. It's not a small part longer. It's ages, and it's gloomy as well. That winter, the Melbourne winter, it stretches on. It's grey, and then you get like some summer, and then the summer can be like too much, and it's fucked as well.
No, so when did you start your podcast? Because you've got your podcast. First off, tell people what it's called and all that sort of stuff, and then
I'm quitting alcohol. That's what it is. So I just record every day since the day I quit alcohol. Just a 5-minute podcast, just fucking talking shit, whatever comes to my head that day. And I started, 4 years, 161 days.
Holy
That's how long. Yeah.
A lot of episodes.
Every day. Haven't missed a day. Fucking hospitalizations, kids being born, all sorts. Yeah.
So, and so yours isn't video?
No. I can't because it's every day and I'm on the run and all that sort of stuff. So, and yeah.
And it's just you?
Just me.
See, this is I talked to Billy Darcy about this because Billy does his on his own.
Yeah.
That is the psychoest thing I can think of.
It's insane, but I was doing a podcast before that with a couple of other comedians down in Melbourne, and we were getting guests as well, and just the fucking organising these idiots together, and the funnier the comic is, also the flakier and more bullshit they are to deal with.
The harder they are to lock down.
Yeah. So I was just like, I'm never doing this again. I'm not doing a podcast or anything with anyone. And then I was like, because Bill Burr did one for an hour.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would like to do it by myself so I can just I don't have to rely on anyone. And I loved Bill Burr's at the time, but I was like, I can't do an hour. Like an hour is insane.
Crazy.
So I was like, I can't do an hour, but I'll do like 5 minutes every day. So I was like, and even that was like a fucking like pushing shit uphill at the start. Now it's fine. I can just roll 15 minutes off the top of my head if I want to.
So do you have notes, or do you have somewhere you want to go? You just go.
Because I'm always like avoiding doing it. Like I don't want to do it. So I'll put it off until like the last minute, and then I'll turn it on and I'm like, all right, whatever comes. I'll just go on a riff, see what happens. That's it.
And it was just all spurred on by the quitting alcohol, and then. So is it?
I thought it would be interesting to see, because I didn't know. You don't know if you're going to start again as well.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen. So I was like, and I thought it would be interesting to track for other people to listen to, and if people are in the same situation, to see what actually happens and how you cope with like fucked up shit in your life when you don't have the drink. The shit you would normally turn to. That happens to you, that would normally make you turn to drink. What do you do?
Yeah. No, that's a good point, because I think the initial bit of feeling better, and you're feeling like you're turning your life around, all that initial progress is one thing, but then it is that 4 years down the track.
Yeah, well, what happens is, because I did it in my 20s, I had to quit alcohol. I quit for like 14 months. But what happens is that initial like month, 6 weeks is like you feel good, you know, and then you fucking plateau. Like around the 3-month mark, you just flatline, and then maybe even feel worse than you were when you were drinking. And
right,
then
you've convinced me. I'm not gonna quit.
no,
Stick
and
at it.
then the fucking
The voices.
Yeah, like if I feel this shit, like I don't even feel better. I've been sober 3 months, and that's when everyone starts drinking again. Is around the 3-month mark.
Really?
Because it's like a plateau, and the plateau, and even dip that can last for like 2-3 months as well. So from like 3 months to 6 months, you feel way worse. And after a year, because also what you do is you replace out one addiction for another.
Yeah, I know. I've a few blokes that have done that.
Yeah, I know. It's the thing. So like I went from drinking too much to not drinking at all, and then like a pack of darts a day, eating an ice cream, chocolate, just like it was chaos.
Not doing it for health.
No. I was at the end of 1 year, I was the fattest and most unhealthy I'd ever been.
Oh, really?
After a year of not drinking, yeah.
Bloody hell. Because now you're real lean.
Yeah, but this is taken 3 years to get to that with like some fallbacks and all that sort of shit.
Nice.
Yeah.
So people listening to your podcast, are they people...
They're all alcoholic. Like they're still drinking. They listen to it while they're drinking, and they'll like send me like voice messages. I'm at the pub. We're listening to this. Like they're all degenerate.
I was going to say, because I met a couple of a few of them at that Lazy Bones.
Yeah.
And that's what. And then Tommy Orr, who was with us, he just turns to me and he goes, "Yeah, all the listeners are piss wrecks." I'm like, that's
They
so
fucking
good.
are.
Because
I did
it's
it-
not what you'd expect.
I know, but I don't know. I did a show in London, and everyone like it was just chaos. Like, just they were so fucked. Everyone was drunk.
So you're able to tour a bit off the back of the podcast then?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not like selling huge tickets, but I can sell some tickets.
But you can go to London and sell a bunch of tickets.
Yeah, like I can sell one show in London and one show in Ireland, and I'm doing Canada soon, and I can hopefully sell a show. But that's where it's at. And
All the drinking cultures.
all the white countries, I should be good. Yeah. But not like huge things or anything like that, but just something. It's good. It's good to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, and how do they go with like adjusting the difference between podcast Dave and stand-up Dave?
That's been fucking more difficult for me because it's so intimate. They fucking know me so well that it's like real. It is real weird. So people will just be like, they know everything about me, like my whole life, what I've done for the last 4.5 years, and I guess I'm like a good friend to them that I've never met. So they approach me, and so I've got to like jump on board like that. And
so there's because that one-way familiarity is a weird dynamic.
And then when I started doing stand-up to my own crowd, it was a little bit weird because I felt like, oh, am I covering shit that I've covered too much in the podcast? Because I really have tried to keep the stand-up and the podcast content completely, as much as I can, completely different, because like I don't like when you go up to see a comedian you like off a podcast and they basically do a fucking podcast to you.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I like the stand-up, doing the stand-up and the jokes and all that. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a like teething process to get that balance right with the crowd.
Yeah, because it is. Well, I think with podcasting too, especially audio, when it's just an audio podcast, like when people are only everyone listens in headphones.
Yeah.
Like so, it does feel, and especially when you're just talking about you're talking about personal stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
If they've listened for a period of time.
Yeah.
It's like them having a one-way phone call with their mate.
That's right.
And so they're rocking up thinking, hey, we're just gonna go hang out with Dave tonight.
Yeah, that's right. And another thing that happens, and I think because like on my logo I don't have my face or anything, and like they've wanted to meet me for so long. They know me so well, and then they finally meet me, and they're like, "Yeah, all right, well, fuck that cunt, fuck him."
Oh,
And
no,
then-
he's just a bloke.
Yeah, he's
right.
just
He doesn't even drink anymore.
He's not even that funny off stage anyway.
That's the other thing too. I find, like, you know, when people come up to you after a show and you're like, they're excited to say g'day, and if they've really enjoyed you,
Yeah.
there is that feeling.
man.
All I'm doing is I need to get myself out of this before I disappoint this person.
That's so it's so true. I fucking feel that all the time because I can sort of like you feel them like waiting for you to do something hilarious. I'm like, it's not life.
Yeah, dude.
I stare at the wall most days for like 4 hours, just like contemplating.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
To pretend to be that funny.
Oh my god. Yeah, and as soon as you start comedy, your life funniness disappears, like because it all gets redirected into the art form. So you like I don't know about you, but I'm fucking the least funny cunt off stage now. Before I started comedy, fucking couldn't stop me. Now I'm just like, oh, I can't be bothered.
Mate, I'm exactly the same, and it's the what I think I used to say, well, especially when I was working at Fox, and you'd be doing 70 hours a week,
Yeah.
right? And then like I didn't have that urge to write a bunch of new material or because that itch to be funny is getting scratched.
Yeah.
And so then you just sort of like,
To be honest with you, that's happening with me a little bit with the podcast as well. Because it's basically like I'm doing a new 5-10 every fucking day. And then I do get like quite a bit of feedback as well. So I'm like, all right, that's cool. And so the stand-up, like I have to really push myself into like doing the stand-up. Like I love doing the stand-up.
how do you write? Like, because your stand-up's pretty like your point of view.
Yeah,
like, it's
yeah.
not like there's not a lot of contrivances there, which I'd imagine if you if you had your podcast and then came out and you were whimsical and talking about a whole bunch of stuff that didn't happen and they know that didn't happen, that's not going to fly.
No.
But how do you go about writing? Like, do you ever listen to the stuff on the podcast or think about something afterwards and go, oh, there might be a bit in that? Or...
I started going through it because I was like, because the other thing that has happened now, I need to fucking start developing hours quicker. I can't spend like 10 years on 1 hour.
Yeah.
Because like if you want to tour back to your own crowd, you can't go back with the same shit.
No.
So I need to figure out some fucking material. So I went back and started listening to my own podcast, which is like fucking traumatic.
I know exactly where you're coming from. I listen to this to edit.
Yeah.
And even then, if I'm like, oh no, this bit was fine, I'll skip right through it.
Yeah, it's when I went through, I did find some shit, but I'm like, nah. How do I write? I have sort of like a process that if I do this particular thing, it works, but then I fucking rarely do it. It's like,
you are like, I know exactly where you're coming from. Every day with me, it's a struggle to start.
Yeah.
Once I'm in it, once I'm doing whatever I'm doing. Like today,
Fuck. It's so good hearing other people. I thought you would be like a disciplinarian, just like no matter what. You're like Seinfeld.
No.
I'm writing, I've got this, yeah.
Not at all. Like today, like any given day, like I'm like, okay, one of my focuses at the moment is I've got to try and post more on social media and that sort of stuff.
It's a fucking nightmare as well.
And so I'm like, okay, like as soon as I've backed a few, like where I'm going, I've got 3 days worth of stuff or 4 days worth of stuff. I'm like, I don't have to do that. But then, so I avoid it. And then when I finally get to the time crunch, I'll do it. I'll record a couple of videos and edit them and stuff and really enjoy the process of doing it and be happy with it and then be like, oh man, how good is it? Can't wait to post that. But literally, like, I get to that this afternoon. By tomorrow morning, I'll be dreading editing this podcast.
Oh my God.
Even though this is fun.
Yeah.
But
this is exactly the same as me. What the fuck is that?
I don't know. And it is, once I start, I'm all right. Once I lock in and get going, I'm fine. And I'll keep going
God.
way longer than I thought I was going to, because I'm like, I'll do this one more thing. I'll do this one more thing. I'll do this one more thing. But it's the getting started.
The starting it's so fucking hard. I can go days without starting.
Oh, yeah, easy. Especially if the
find
house
anything.
isn't tidy.
The house has to be immaculate for me to do anything. And I don't even give a fuck about a clean house.
Yeah, man, it's 4 days since I've mowed the lawns.
Oh, man. I'll put shit off. Yeah. Yeah, so the writing thing, if I'm the same as you, if I start, but I don't write, I go for like a long walk. If I have, I have a bit, I just need it worded out. If I go for a long walk, if I take an hour walk, not only will I work on that bit, I'll be able to fit it into other bits. I'll be able to, and then when I try it on stage, record it, go back, listen to it, know what I'll need to take out, then I can edit it really well with a pen and just tinker with the mechanics of it.
Do you write it out in full with the pen, or do you?
No, just
bullet points.
Just a bit. Oh no! This is just to fix up a certain word or a certain section. I never really write out the joke full. I mean, I have, but it doesn't work for me because it just
different part of the brain.
Yeah, it just sounds robotic.
Yeah.
When I start doing that, that's why the walk's good, because I'm like, right, boof, boof, boof. And I've tried it the other way. I've tried where I've written the whole thing out and then talked it out, and it just doesn't. It doesn't work. It works the other way for me, where I can just move a word around.
Very much the same. In that I will get a couple of thoughts. I need to work on this. I'll walk. I'll talk to myself. I'll make a note in my phone if I think I'm not going to remember. What was that? What was that turn of phrase? I need to remember that specific thing. So I build bullet points, and then I can shuffle around the bullet points. Like when I'm doing a show, when I'm constructing a show, palm cards.
Yeah, okay.
Every as short a piece I can on each palm card.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's I know this chunk works, and it's going to all just be a chunk. So that's a 5-minute chunk on one palm card, but it's only ever 2 dots. This into this.
Yeah.
And then it's just, then I can see it all and move them around and go, what if I put that here and shuffle the deck?
That would, even I can't do that. I have to go full. It's all memory.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My memory's not good enough.
I've never.
Because I still drink.
Yeah, I've tried even writing shit on my palm. I'm like, what? What bit is that?
That fascinates me too when you see people write on their hand and stuff.
Yeah,
before a set,
it's crazy. And then
but anytime you see me on stage, just know in my back pocket is a scrap of paper with 8 dot points.
Okay.
So, even if I've doing a set that I've been doing, it's just a security blanket that's sitting there.
So someone like Heggie, he's just writing all the time, isn't he? He's just
he writes very much more longhand, I think, and does but because it's so word perfect. This is about turn of phrase. But even we were at the store last weekend. We were doing the shows together, and we were sitting watching the first half. And he was about to go, and he just leans over and he'd written a note in his phone, something that obviously, and I'll tell you off air because I don't want to ruin his joke, but it's a cracker.
Yeah.
He just leans over and goes, "Do you reckon I can say that on stage?" And I just started laughing, and especially too, it was a quiet bit of whoever was on stage set, and I just started laughing. I'm like, "You have to say that on stage." So but he just. He's I think his life cycle is if you go to an open mic between basically now and the start of next festival season, there's a 1 in 2 chance you'll see him. He's just there working on things.
Yeah, I remember watching a podcast with him, or listening to a podcast a few years back. I forget what it was. And he's just like, I work harder than anyone. That's why I'm successful.
Well, it's because he's not naturally funny. So,
isn't he?
No, he is. It's really.
I don't know him at all.
That's just so I can clip that out and send it to him. He's really funny. But he does. But that's, I think, some people. You got to work hard.
Yeah.
There's no.
Yeah, that's the disappointing thing you find out pretty early on in comedy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because you get into it because you don't want to work, and then you realize, fuck, it's more work, and it's just, it consumes you.
Mate, on paper, it's fucked. An hour, like maximum an hour a day.
Yeah.
On paper, but in reality, it's so much more. And it's not just like, it's not the bit of getting on stage, the amount of stuff that goes into that, not just the writing, but knowing who to book, booking the spot, having the profile, having the stuff to even like.
Yeah, the stage, it's like sports. They're like, yeah, we're paid to train.
Yeah.
The game is the fun. And yeah, being on stage is the fun part, but the shit behind it, it's just like, it's pretty fucking hectic to get through. Because it's all, there's nothing stable. There's nothing, everything's sort of like a guess, and you're like, should I be doing this? Am I doing the right thing? Why is that like?
Well, the other thing I find is like literally I'll look, like my diary, I'm pretty busy right up until the end of the year.
Yeah.
But because there's that artificial barrier of December 31.
Yeah.
The year ends. Like that's what everyone's sort of moving towards at the moment. Whereas it'll be mid-December where I start to look and go, I haven't booked anything for next year. And then I start to panic. And then all of a sudden I'll look, and I do this most years. January's reasonably quiet, but then I'll just start picking up whatever I can. And then all of a sudden I'll look in my diary and go, I haven't got a weekend off till June.
Well, as a comic, that's a pretty good problem to have.
Yeah, but knowing that it's going to, avoiding that panic and having the trust that the work's going to come, it's going to feel if you keep working.
So are you still hustling for gigs or?
I'm pretty lucky. I don't have to hustle, but I don't, like if I'm free, there's not heaps that I say no to. If
okay.
I try to look at it like this. So there's gigs you do that are money, good pay.
Yeah.
There's gigs that you do for you got to have a reason for any gig. You do. Yeah. So some of them are like, okay, this is worth it for the money. Yep. Others is, okay, I'm getting in front of an audience that I don't get to get in front of, or I'm getting in front of an audience that I can try and pull out of. Some of them will be my people. Like I can try and get over my people. And sometimes too, it's just like, okay, I know I need to work on new stuff. Yeah. So I'll midweek, I'll try and go, like at the moment, I started doing it, started writing some new stuff and sort of looking towards next year's show, but I got to knock this Sydney Comedy Store show off. I've just done Newcastle, I've just done Brisbane. And I realised I was working on all new stuff and then went, oh, you know what? I got to tighten up this show because that's what people are paid to see. So I'm sort of focusing on that at the moment. Yeah. And then once that's done though, it'll be just falling into the hitting open mics, trying to write. Yeah. The thing there is trying to be conscious of, I'm not here to kill. I'm not here to. I'm not here to try and convert any of this audience to me. If they do, then that's good. Yeah. But this is where I need to test the new stuff. If it doesn't work, then that's all right. That's a learning experience, as opposed to, when you go in and you go in with full intention of like, oh, I'm here because I want to try this new stuff. Yeah. And then the ego kicks in when you see a couple of people start to do well, and you're like, I could really slay here and impress these comedians. You want to see someone do well.
You want to see someone really kill?
Yeah. There's that, but then what are you getting out of that in an unpaid spot? You know what I mean? It's not.
Yeah. That's I've been just pretty much since I got back from. So I had like Edinburgh last year. And that just fucking cooked me.
Yeah.
I was like, I fucking hated comedy after that. I was like, so I did Edinburgh, then I did a show in Ireland, and I did a show in London. And then when I got back, I'm like, fucking, I'm done with comedy for a little while. But I didn't I didn't even take a break, actually. I kept gigging, but I had checked out. I was like, I'm not enjoying this. I don't give a fuck.
But that's what sometimes you need that mental space.
Yeah, and I just I didn't want to do any of the material again, so I was like, I just want to do.
I know that feeling. Like I hate my jokes so much. I remember when my when my youngest boy was crook, when he had leukemia.
Okay, yeah.
And so there was 2 years where he was on treatment and stuff. And right in the thick of it, like towards the end, I was able to clear my head a bit more. But right in the thick of it, I couldn't think of anything to write. Like I wasn't writing.
How could you?
But the only time I was like not thinking about that, where I was actually fully just in the moment, was when I got to get on stage.
Yeah. Okay.
So by the end of that, I hadn't written anything in ages.
Yeah.
But I was so sick of all my material.
Yeah.
Mate, you should have seen how good I was at crowd work. I was fearless. I would do absolutely anything to avoid having to do my material.
That's a good problem.
Yeah, it was a good.
No.
But that, I think, too, I learned a bit out of that in terms of, I kind of wish it was the clip era then, because I would have got heaps of good clips, because I was doing heaps of. But it was, too, knowing, because I knew the jokes and I knew them, done them so much and I knew them so well, I knew how quickly to cut bait, and how to get out of an awkward situation, get into and then
that's becoming the master of a craft, isn't it? So like you can manipulate anything into any shape.
Where you're trying to, what I describe it as is knowing if you think of all your bits as a freeway, you just know the last entrance and the first exit you can get off. Yeah. And then I take the side streets for a bit down here and do a bit of crowd work. Oh, we're getting back on the freeway. We're going to go fast here, guys. And then, boom, we're back off. We're back in the neighbourhood.
That's pretty much what happened in Edinburgh, because you're doing an hour show every night, and then you're doing gigs around town, and you're just eating shit. Like, you're going from, like, killing in this room here, walk across the room, go to this exactly the same set, same energy, eat shit like you've never done comedy before. And so your emotions are just fucking jacked all over the place. And after that,
mate, and that's what I say about going and doing those open mics where I'm trying new stuff. I'm much more disciplined about it now, not cutting bait and going to something I know is going to work. But it doesn't stop me walking away from the room just going, oh man, I saw those guys do well.
Yeah, I know. That's what fucking happens.
But it's like,
you know in your head, if I wanted to turn it on in that room, I could turn it on.
Yeah.
But I'm here for a particular thing. But that's when I got back from Edinburgh, I'm like, I just need some dark room with like maybe 6 or 8 people that will just listen to my shit, my real shit. And I just need to bomb in the dark for a while.
Yeah.
And that's all.
There's a couple of open mics where I try and do that. There's some, I reckon there's some guys that do the frequent a couple of the Sydney open mics that have never seen me do particularly well. Yeah. And they must just be like,
they look at you.
Why does this guy get to drop in? He's hopeless.
I had that in Melbourne for a long time. I'd just bomb these open mics, and then I'd get a good gig and what the fuck's happening? He's not bombing. And I'm like, no, this is a shit gig. What am I meant to be doing in here besides bombing?
There's nothing better too than when you've seen like our mate Tom Orr. Yeah. I work out a bunch of stuff in his room in Hive.
I bomb all the time in there.
Yeah, it's so good. And then but he came to the store last weekend when I was closing at the store for the weekend, just promoting my solo show. And he comes out, he goes, oh, man, you've really worked some of those jokes out.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, you've only seen them as half thought out bits. You haven't seen them since they've been polished.
Yeah. And plus that Hive Bar in Erskineville, that's a particular crowd as well.
Man, I love that because I know it's small or whatever, but I love the fact that you can, as long as there's a mix and there's enough people there, which doesn't take many in that tiny room, but even if you're not getting heaps of the audible, like even if they're just sort of tittering or whatever, but you can see their faces, so you can actually get a feel for, are you quietly enjoying this or are you not? Like you get a real, and you can read faces. It's the reaction of different.
And that particular crowd in there, they like on site usually hate me. So if I can, sort of win them over a little bit, it's all right. This could be a good thing here.
Yeah, that's so. Before we go, because we are getting about time, plug podcast, everything else you're doing, where you're going to be, and so Canada shows. I have no idea.
Canada shows, Vancouver. Is there any Canadian listeners?
To be honest, I don't. This is part of my stupid brain, I don't look at
Numbers or anything.
Numbers or anything because
because it becomes an addiction, and
But also, if it's not what I hoped it would be or not what I thought it would be,
it's depressing.
well, it's not just that, but it gives me a reason not to do it anymore. I'm
Yeah,
like,
no,
well, why would I? And
That's true.
because I've got that thing where I love doing this,
Yeah.
but give me an excuse not to do anything.
Yeah. No,
I'll
you're
do
doing the right
nothing.
thing. Don't look at numbers. Don't look at because like you can't control any of that shit
No.
anyway. The only thing you can control is the work, and then at least sending it out.
Yeah.
Do the work, send it out, and then fucking.
So let's assume this is massive in Vancouver, so everyone get along to Dave's
Canadians. Yeah, 6th of December.
A good time of year to be in
Vancouver.
Canada.
Yeah, it's freezing. I didn't know because I've tied it into a trip through the US and Central America and shit. So
show. Oh, lovely.
yeah, so it's going to be a big 7 weeks. So 6th of December, Vancouver, 8th of December, Toronto. Then I'll do some stuff in the US. I haven't sorted that out yet. But I'll have a few shows in Sydney before I go. I don't know. Follow me, Boyle Comedy, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And if you're an alcoholic degenerate, I'm Quitting Alcohol. That's the podcast.
Excellent. And that's out daily?
Every day, yeah.
7 days a week. That is
7 days a week.
Man.
Yeah,
That's
it's a lot.
the thought of it. Just, yeah.
It pisses my wife off. I can tell you that. Fuck, she hates it.
Well,
She's got used to it
unsubscribed.
now, but like when we had our second kid, and I was like, I need to duck.
Need to duck out of the delivery suite.
I've got like, I got a. She wasn't too happy about that.
Well, has she met any of the listeners? Because I don't
Yeah,
think that's
yeah.
going to win her over.
No, the listeners love her. They're always like, why the fuck are you with her? With him. How did you end up with him? Like, but yeah, they think she's an angel.
Oh,
me
awesome.
less.
Mate, I'll get you back after you've been through,
Yeah,
the
sweet.
America trip. But
That'd be
thanks
good.
very much for doing that.
No worries, Barney.
Cheers, mate.